Leviticus chapter 10 is where we are at. And we will be looking at corrupt worship. Corrupt worship. Leviticus chapter 10. Okay, you can join us there. There's a few new faces in here, so let me. What I'm not going to do with the new faces is have you stand up and we embarrass you and all that kind of stuff. What I do want to do is, before we get into this, is say this, that we've been studying through Leviticus, and Leviticus is, just in a nutshell, what's happening is that God is explaining to his people how to have a relationship with him, how to be in good standing or right standing with him. And so he's been very specific about how to do that. It happens through sacrifice. His people were sinful, and they needed to have their sins covered in order to be in right standing with him. So he's given them all of the different offerings. We've read through all of those, the burnt offering and the sin offering, all of those. And he's told them exactly how they're supposed to go about it. He is now at this point in Leviticus, he's been talking to the priests and getting the priests all set up. Like, okay, we're going to start this sacrifice thing, this ministry thing is happening. And here's what I need you priests to do. And the priests were Aaron and his sons. Aaron would have been the high priest, they called him, that was his position. And then he had sons, and they were the priests, so the high priest and the priests. And they were responsible for leading the sacrifices, okay, for the people, so that the people could be right with God. And God was very specific, gave some very detailed instructions. I mean, down to like, when you're doing this specific sacrifice, you're going to bring this right thigh, and you're going to bring this body part and that body part, and then this is what you're going to do the rest of it. And he was very, very specific. Well, sometimes people have problems with instructions. Sometimes people, not any of us, right? Because we're all obedient. And when someone gives us instructions, we pay attention, we follow through, we get the job done right. Right? Like when you're off of school for a week, maybe like for Thanksgiving or something like that, and mom and dad are going to work, and they leave instructions. Like, make sure you clean the counters, sweep the floors, pick up after the dog, do the laundry, dust. They give specific instructions. And then some people, not any of us, because we're all obedient people, we don't ever forget anything, we follow instructions. But maybe they give us those instructions and then they leave for the day, and we just forget all about it until we hear mom coming back home because the garage door is opening, and then we try to do all of those things in 30 seconds before she walks in, right? Not us, I mean. We would never do that, right? Everybody here, you guys all follow instructions? Yes? Yeah? Everybody? Does anybody here follow instructions? Okay. Yeah, good. Some of you do, sometimes. Thank you for your honesty. Kind of like, yeah, okay. They had a hard time following instructions, so God has been very specific giving them instructions. And what we find out is the response very quickly. He gives the instructions, and very quickly they forget the instructions. Not everybody, but a couple of specific people, and God deals with it harshly. It ends up being this corrupt worship, and we'll see these two things in chapter 10. We will see corrupt worship, and then this command to continue with the sacrifices, which we'll get to in a few minutes. But let's go ahead and deal with this first section on corrupt worship. In verse 1, then Nadab and Abihu, these are two guys, Nadab and Abihu. It says about Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron. So Aaron is the high priest, okay? Who is Aaron? Okay, watch this. Aaron is the high priest. Who's Aaron? Not the son. Moses' brother. He's the high priest. Aaron is the high priest. And then Aaron's sons are the priests. So Aaron is the high priest. He's got sons who are priests. Okay? And he's got these two sons. One is named Nadab and one is called Abihu. Look at verse 1. Then Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, each took his censer and put fire in it, put incense on it, and offered profane fire before the Lord, which he had not commanded them. So Nadab and Abihu have taken their containers, they put some fire in there, some coals perhaps, and they put some incense on there, and they offer that to the Lord, we're told, that they offered profane fire or strange fire or unauthorized. In fact, at the end of verse 1, it says there, which he, that's the Lord, had not commanded them. He had not commanded them to do this. What's going on? At the end of Leviticus chapter 9, Moses had been telling the priests, go through these steps, this is what you're going to do. And when you do this, God's glory is going to be revealed. So they went through all of the steps. They followed the instructions. And sure enough, at the end of chapter 9, God's glory is revealed. And his glory is revealed in a crazy way, in that his glory shows up. What does that mean? Is it a cloud? Is it his aura? What is that? I don't really know what that means, but it just means that his glory was there. They knew that he was there. They didn't see him like in bodily form, but they saw that his presence was there. And out of his glory, fire shot out and consumed the sacrifice. And we're told at the end of chapter 9 that everybody yelled, everybody screamed, and fell on their faces. In other words, it was exciting, it was terrifying, it was awe-inspiring all at once, and the people reacted and fell. Now, immediately following that, Nadab and Abihu get the idea in their minds. Let's join the party, and they grab their censers, put fire in there. They bring some incense. They burn, and then what happens is in verse 2. So fire went out from the Lord and devoured them. And they died before the Lord. What does that mean? It means that God, not Moses, not Aaron, not anybody else, that God just killed these two individuals, Nadab and Abihu. How's that for a Sunday morning? Put that in your pipe and smoke it. God just killed two people. So the question that we're asking ourselves this morning is this: why did God kill Nadab and Abihu? What was so crazy about what they did that God killed them? So that's the question that we're going to answer this morning. Now, number one is at the end of verse 1, we're told there, he had not commanded them. God did not command them to do. I didn't tell you to do that. Why would you do that? I did not tell you to do that. What was going on with Nadab and Abihu? If God did not command it, then we find that it was this corrupt worship was of the flesh. Now let's talk about that for just a moment. What is the difference between the flesh and spirit? Does anybody know? Anybody know what the difference is between flesh and spirit? Yes?
What you do good is from your soul, and what you do bad is from your flesh.
Okay. What is your name?
Chanel.
Chanel. Thank you very much. So, that's it in a nutshell. What's going on with the flesh is of the flesh. It's what you want to do. What goes on in the spirit is from God. That's God's spirit working in you and through you. Their worship, Nadab and Abihu, was of the flesh. In other words, they decided that they were going to worship God in this way. Now, it may be that they got all wrapped up in the emotion of it all. They saw something happening. They saw the glory. They saw the fire shoot out and consume the sacrifice. It could have been that. Some people think that Nadab and Abihu were actually drunk. Why would they think that? We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But whatever it was, whatever the reason was, it was of the flesh. It was not a spiritual act. It's very clear there that God had not commanded them to do this. So God's reaction to their flesh here, God's reaction to their action is found in his fiery judgment in verse 2. So fire went out from the Lord and devoured them, and they died before the Lord. So God's response was to kill these two. Now, these are priests. These are sons of Aaron. Aaron, we're going to find out, had at least 4 sons. Nadab and Abihu. We'll go on to find out Eleazar and Ithamar are his other 2 sons. We'll talk about them a little later. They start playing with fire also, okay? But it ends better for them. We'll find out what goes on with them. But Nadab and Abihu die, we're told, because God had not commanded them to do this thing. So fire goes out and devours them. Now, why is God? So they did something wrong. Why would God immediately judge them so harshly? And is that just how God is? I don't know if you have a problem with this story or not. What do you mean God killed people? He killed people. I don't know if you have a problem with that or not, but I just want you to think about this before you start getting all mad and, see, I knew it, God is angry and he just kills people and, he's unjust and whatever kind of crazy thoughts you might have. Just keep this in mind, that you and I make mistakes. We sin all of the time, and God hasn't devoured us with fire yet. So, yes, God did this, but I want you to get the bigger picture that God is very, very patient with people, that he's very forgiving, that he's very merciful with people in general, you and I included. He'll show his mercy to Aaron and his other 2 sons here as we get on into the story. But fire goes out, this fiery judgment. Now, we find in verse 3. Verse 3 says this, and Moses said to Aaron, this is what the Lord spoke. So Moses has a message for Aaron. And here's the message from God. Now keep in mind, God is speaking to or through Moses to Aaron. Okay? So Moses is the middleman. God is speaking through Moses to Aaron. And here's the message. Verse 3, by those who come near me, I must be regarded as holy. By those who come near me, that phrase is a reference to the priests. The priests are the ones that would come near to God. Okay? So he says, by those who come near me, I must be regarded as holy. He's going to use the word must again. Must means it has to happen. He says there, by those who come near me, I must be regarded as holy, and before all the people, I must be glorified. So this is the message. By those who come near me, the priests, I must be regarded as holy. So evidently what happened was with Nadab and Abihu, they're the ones that come near to God, they're the priests. Evidently what happened was they did not regard or respect God as being holy. They just showed up with their own censors, their own way of sacrificing. They just showed up with, hey, this is what we want to do. And what they were not redoing was they were not regarding God as being holy. God is holy. But the second thing that they were guilty of was, and before all the people, I must be glorified. So evidently, by them taking up their censer, their instrument with fire in it, offering this strange, the incense, this strange offering, by doing that, they were not glorifying God in front of all the people. In other words, they were not being a good example. They were being a terrible example. So the religious leaders are being a bad example, showing the people what not to do. Do not act this way. So what God does, we ask this question and I'll answer it right away here. Why was God so harsh in his judgment? He's not always that harsh. Why was he so harsh now in this instance? Well, it's because this whole thing is just starting out. Like we just started this. I'm just now finished giving you instructions. My glory has just shown up. I've told you how to do everything. And you immediately, their first response, Nadab and Abihu, is to disregard all that God has just told them and do things the way that they want to do it. And God, setting the example from the very beginning, says that cannot happen. That cannot happen with the religious leaders. That cannot happen with the priests. The example must be made. And so he uses Nadab and Abihu, and yes, he judges them harshly. But he's not outside of his rights. He's within his own rights to do that. Do you know that God, and this will help you in life just in general, do you know that God has ultimate say over your life? That he may do as he pleases. That God, because he created me, because I am his creation, he may do whatever he wants. He gave me life. He can take that life away. And if the rapture does not happen soon, then all of us in this room will grow old and our hearts will stop beating and God will take the life out of this body. God has the right to do that. You may or may not like that, but that means very little in regards to what God has the right to do. We're his creation. He can take our lives whenever he wants. Okay? We don't have, sometimes you get this idea from people or whatever on TV or in a country song or whatever, like, I'm gonna tell God how it's gonna work, or Frank Sinatra, I did it my way, I'm gonna do life my way. Well, you may think that, but see, your heart, you've got an organ in your body, in your chest cavity. Okay? Not talking about spiritual issues right now. I'm talking about an actual organ. You've got an organ in your body called a heart. And that heart, does anybody know what your heart does? It beats, right? If it's a Sunday morning in the high school class, it beats. Right? It's a little bit slower. But that heart, that organ inside of your body that keeps the blood pumping and moving through your veins, it only has so many beats. It's only got so many beats. And the scary thing is, you don't know how many beats it has. And everybody in here, in this room, has a different number of beats in their heart. And for some of you, your heart will stop beating when you're very, very old, perhaps. Old and gray or bald or whatever, and your heart will stop beating. For some of us, it's going to happen much sooner than that. But you have no say over that. No, you've got some, you can eat right and you can be healthy and you can exercise and, you can, take medication or vitamins or whatever, and we ought to do those things to keep our bodies healthy. But when it all is said and done, when it comes down to it, God knows how many beats your heart was designed for. And there's only so many beats in there. And then one of these days, that's it. And there will come a time where maybe that'll happen, and somebody will try to shock it back into life and try to get it going and, do the chest compressions, but it'll be done. It's just done. And you cannot stop that. Once it happens, it happens. And God knows how many beats you have in your heart. He knows how long it's going to last, and you don't. And you don't because you're not really in control like you think you are. I'm not really in control like I think I am. God is, because God is a creator. So God may give life and he may take it. And once I settle that in my heart and in my mind, I can walk around with a little bit more peace. Like, you know what, God's got this. He knows what's going on. And if I live to be 120, which none of us will, or if I live to be, 32 or whatever, or some other number, God knows what he's doing. I don't have any control over that. I'm God's. So the fact that God killed Nadab and Abihu, though it may upset us initially, like, wait a minute, why is God killing people and why is he so harsh? Well, he can be harsh or not be harsh, or he can do whatever he wants because he's God, and Nadab and Abihu were part of his creation. And he can do whatever he wants. Now, besides that, God had given them specific instructions. Do this. And the first chance they got, they did something else. And so they met this fiery judgment. But what happens now, beginning at verse 3, is that God is giving them further instructions. And the first thing he does is he says, listen, the priests, those who come near me, the priests, you've got to regard me as being holy. I'm not just some plaything. I'm holy. They realize that now. And the second thing is, all of the people, I need to be glorified in front of all the people. And if the priests are disrespecting me in front of all the people, then this is what happens. Nadab and Abihu, they die. So it says at the end of verse 3, Aaron held his peace. Maybe Aaron was, well, no doubt Aaron was upset. He just lost two of his sons. But he keeps quiet because he realizes in that moment, Nadab and Abihu, they stepped beyond what they were supposed to, and they never should have done that. God just explained that to them. Now in verse 4, then Moses called these two people, Mishael and Elzaphan. They were the sons, Mishael, that's a son, Elzaphan, the sons of Uzziel, the uncle of Aaron. Now follow with me. Uzziel is the uncle of Aaron. And Uzziel has two sons, Mishael and Elzaphan. So they were related to Nadab and Abihu, who just died. And Moses says to them, come near, carry your brethren, your brothers, carry these guys from before the sanctuary out of the camp. Come and pick them up, remove them, and take them out. So they went near and carried them by their tunics out of the camp as Moses had said. Now, the question is this. You've got Aaron, you've got Nadab, you've got Abihu who just died, and then we're going to find out here in verse 6 that he's got two more sons, Eleazar and Ithamar. So he's got two more sons. You've got Aaron, you've got two more sons, Eleazar and Ithamar. Why does he call other family members to come and carry these guys out? Shouldn't he have called their dad and their brothers? But he doesn't do that. He calls two other people, two other family members. Why does he do that? Well, what he's about to explain to them is, Aaron, Eleazar, Ithamar, you've seen what happens. Don't play. And he's going to tell them, don't leave the tabernacle. If you do that, you're going to die. He's actually going to warn them. So let's look at it. Verse 6. And Moses said to Aaron and to Eleazar and Ithamar, his sons, do not uncover your heads nor tear your clothes, lest you die, and wrath come upon all the people. But let your brethren, the whole house of Israel, bewail the burning which the Lord has kindled. So Moses just told their dad, okay, Nadab and Abihu, who just died. Moses just told their dad, do not uncover your head and don't tear your clothes. What? Why would he tell them that? Well, when the Jews mourned, there were two things that would go along with that mourning. Oftentimes, they would tear their clothes. They were so upset that they would just rip their clothes. The other thing is that they would oftentimes take dirt, dust, and they would throw it in the air or throw it on their head. And it was a way of them expressing their broken heart, the fact that they were upset or sad, and it was a way of them mourning. So Moses tells Aaron, listen, you cannot mourn like you normally would. Now again, this seems harsh. It seems like, dude, this man just lost his two sons. And now you're stopping him from mourning? Why would he do that? We'll talk about that here in just a moment. But understand that's what he's telling them. Don't take the priestly hats off. Don't tear the priestly clothes. Basically what he's saying is you just saw your sons die from messing around. Don't end up dead because you ripped the clothes and you took your hat off. Don't do that. In a moment, he'll tell them, don't leave. In fact, verse 7, look at that. You shall not go out from the door of the tabernacle of meeting, lest you die. For the anointing oil of the Lord is upon you. And they did according to the word of Moses. So he also says, you don't tear your clothes. Don't take your hat off. That's the priestly garments. Don't do that because you just saw your two sons die. Don't do the same thing. And then he tells them, and don't leave. Don't leave. Because you've got the anointing oil of the Lord on you. You've been set apart. You need to stay here. Can you imagine Aaron? Moses says, don't leave. Don't go with the crowd that is carrying the bodies of your two sons outside the camp to go and dispose of them. don't leave. I mean, imagine Aaron, but those are my sons. Nadab and Abihu. No doubt Aaron loved them. No doubt Aaron was brokenhearted. And yet he's told by Moses, don't leave. Don't leave the tabernacle. But my sons, who's going to bury them? Who's going to go and take care of their bodies? Who's going to do that? But Moses, being a godly leader and being a good friend to Aaron, obviously a good family member, he tells him, don't go out, because if you do that, in verse 6, lest you die. And then again in verse 7, if you go outside of the door of the tabernacle of meeting, you will die. So they listened to Moses at the end of verse 7, and they did according to the word of Moses. So they say, okay, fine, we'll stay in here. Now, look what happens in verse 8. Then the Lord spoke to Aaron. Now, this is the first time, okay? Whenever God spoke to anybody in the past, he would speak through Moses. Moses, I'm giving you a message, you go and share that with the individual. When he spoke to Aaron, it was through Moses. He would talk to Moses, go tell Aaron thus and such. He did that earlier in the chapter. But something changes in verse 8. It says in verse 8, then the Lord spoke to Aaron. Then the Lord spoke to Aaron. He now speaks directly to Aaron. And here's the message in verse 9, and it seems like a strange one. He says to Aaron, do not drink wine or intoxicating drink, you nor your sons with you. This is not wine, by the way, this is water. When you go into the tabernacle of meeting, do not drink wine or intoxicating drink when you go into the tabernacle. In other words, when you go in to serve, when you go in to offer sacrifices, don't drink wine or intoxicating drink, lest you die. Again, all sorts of threats of you're going to lose your life if you do this. So verse 9, God speaks to him and says, do not drink wine or intoxicating drink. In other words, don't be under the influence of alcohol when you're going into the tabernacle to serve. Part of the ministry. Now, it seems to me in verse 9 that the priests, Aaron and his sons, were allowed to drink wine. What God is concerned with is that they not drink wine while they're going into the tabernacle to offer sacrifices. Don't do that. In other words, don't be under the influence. Because if you go into the tabernacle to serve under the influence of alcohol, he tells them you will die. Now, this is why some people think that Nadab and Abihu may have been drunk. Maybe they were drunk, they weren't thinking correctly. They saw the fire come out of the glory of God and burn up the sacrifice, and they figured, whoa, yeah, come on, party. I mean, it's celebration time, right? We're heading into the holidays right now, like we have Thanksgiving, and some of you are going to gather up with your family. Some of you are going to get together with your family, you know, your aunt or your uncle that, you know, right? And you're like, oh, I know what's going to happen. And maybe they are not themselves when they're under the influence of alcohol. That's a normal occurrence. People that are under the influence of alcohol is, you know, they can act all crazy. They might start crying or, oh, you know, whatever, you know, when I was 2 years old or whatever, or maybe sometimes they, you know, some people, they get under the influence of alcohol and they get violent. They want to fight everybody. Some people get super funny. Some people get sad. Some people just shut down. The alcohol does something to them. And God is telling Aaron, warning him, listen, don't be under the influence of alcohol when you come to serve, because if you do that, you are going to die. Don't play, God's telling, don't play. Don't mess around, right? Kind of like your dad. You ever come home drunk, you are going to die. You're going to lose your life, right? So God is telling Aaron, don't do that. And so some people think that maybe Nadab and Abihu, maybe they were all excited. There's a celebration going on. Man, God is going to show. I mean, God's going to be here. Come on, let's party. Let's have a good time. And maybe they began to drink alcohol. And you know how brothers are, right? Brothers will do all kinds of dumb things together. No, seriously. Jump off. Come on. You know you can do it. Let's go. Hold on, I'll get it on video. I mean, I don't have any brothers. I've got some cousins that are like brothers, but I've got a son. And there's been times where we're out doing something and it's like it's something dangerous, and he's like, hey, I kind of think maybe if I could climb that thing and jump off and make it to the other side. And then I'm like, yeah, here, give me your phone, I'll get it on video. Or no, some of you have seen the video of when he got inside that pen with that ram that was trying to get him, and I've got a video of this ram that was trying to butt him, trying to keep him away, and I've got this video, and I'm on the outside where it was safe, of course, and I'm just videoing this thing. You know how sometimes brothers are, but then some of you know how guys are, right? Guys, all the dumb things that we do. Jumping off of things or jumping over things and then this. Nadab and Abihu, they died as a result of playing around with these sacrifices. You know how guys on fire are. Why are guys like that? We've done, not here, we haven't done it yet. We've been trying to over the last couple of years, and it hasn't worked out yet. But at the previous youth group that I was at, we would camp at the beach for a week every summer camp. And, we'd have the girls separated and the guys separated, their sleeping areas at night. And, oftentimes what had happened before is like the guys, we would go back to our camp and are we going to bed? No. We got a bonfire going, right? And we'd be out there with the bonfire, and why are guys like this? They just want to do all kinds of things like hey, let's throw this styrofoam plate in the fire and let's see what happens, or can I get Chris's sock and throw it in there and see what happens if we put it in the fire, or what happens if I throw this can in there, or what happens if I throw my tube of toothpaste in there? We want to do all kinds of things. Just like guys in fire, what is the deal? We love it. We want to burn things. Nadab and Abihu are getting together. If they're drinking, it's even worse. Then they've got this fire, they've got the incense, they get themselves in trouble, so much trouble that they die. And now God is explaining to their dad, listen, you can't have anybody coming in here drunk. That cannot happen. I mean, think about this. Imagine if Pastor Chris showed up on a Sunday morning, like all tore up from the night before. I mean, what would you think if I was in here drunk from Saturday night? Hiccup, it's all right, everybody's coming up to Leviticus, right? You leave class, your parents are like, hey, so how did high school service go? Oh, it was pretty cool. Pastor Chris was drunk, but I mean, other than that, imagine. That would be a hot mess, right? That would not be a good thing. And so Nadab and Abihu, by the way, I do not drink at all, okay, just in case. If you ever see a picture, it's not really me, it's photoshopped, okay? Nadab and Abihu possibly were drinking, but they get themselves in trouble, they die, and now God is speaking to Aaron directly and saying, hey, got to make sure people don't come in intoxicated. Now, we move on into verse 12, which takes us into our second and final main division. They are commanded to continue. Verse 12, and Moses spoke to Aaron and to Eleazar and Ithamar, the sons who were left. And this is what he says. Take the grain offering that remains of the offerings made by fire to the Lord, and eat it without leaven beside the altar, for it is most holy. You shall eat it in a holy place, because it is your due and your son's due of the sacrifices made by fire to the Lord. For so I have been commanded. Verse 14. The breast of the wave offering and the thigh of the heave offering. I like this in verse 14. You shall eat in a clean place, you, your sons, and for the first time, your daughters are mentioned. So their family, it's the entire family, they're able to eat the sacrifice. It says in verse 14, for they are your due and your sons' due. We know about these offerings, so we'll skip over the rest of 14 and verse 15. But I want you to understand something here. Why? So Aaron just lost his two sons. Eleazar and Ithamar just lost their two brothers. And the command from God is, get back to the offerings. And it sounds so harsh. Like God seriously just killed their two family members, and now God is just telling them, get back to work? But there are times in our lives when we can start to feel sorry for ourselves. And we can start to focus on ourselves. Well, how come I'm not as tall as he is? How come I'm not as blonde as she is? How come I don't have green eyes like him? How come I can't have a car like her? Why can't I have shoes like him? Why can't I have as much money as her? Why can't I have the things that they have? Why do I have to have this family? Why can't I have that family? Why do my parents have to drive this car? Why can't they drive that car? Why can't I be as smart as that person? Why can't I be team captain? Why does he or she get to do that? And what can happen is we start focusing in on ourselves. And what happens at that point is, if we're not careful, if we don't slap ourselves out of it, what can happen is depression can start to set in, because I'm so focused on myself that all I'm worried about is what I don't have or what I don't get or what I'm not. And why does everybody else get it? And being focused only on myself allows depression to come in and begin to take root. And no doubt, Aaron, Ithamar, Eleazar, the remaining family members, no doubt they felt sorry for themselves. And there is a sure cure to depression, to feeling sorry for yourself, and that is to get busy serving God and serving other people. You see, when I get my eyes off of myself and get them on serving God as I serve his people, it will begin to chase that depression away, because then I'm no longer worried about what I have or don't have, or why don't I have this, or how come I'm not that, or why don't I look this way, or why don't I have these things. I'm not worried about that anymore. I'm no longer worried about who's following me or not following me on TikTok. I don't care about those things, because, man, I'm serving God and I'm serving people. And when I've got my eyes fixed on someone else, then I don't have time to feel sorry for myself. So God here is telling Aaron, Eleazar, and Ithamar, it sounds harsh, like we just lost our family members and you're just telling us to get back to work. Don't stop and start focusing on yourself. Your sons are gone. Nothing you can do about it now. But you've got this role, you've got this responsibility, and you need to focus on that. So by offering sacrifices, they're focused on God and they're focused on other people and not themselves. Are you struggling? Best thing you can do is not stop coming to church. I've seen it for years. People, that's the worst thing you can do. You know, I'm really struggling, so I'm not going to be at church for a few weeks. That's the worst thing you could do. The very best thing you could do is, are you struggling? Keep showing up to church, even though you may not feel like it, but you keep showing up and you say, God, here I am to serve you. And then you start looking for other people that you can bless. How can I help them? How can I be a blessing to someone else? And that is going to dig you out of the hole that you dug for yourself. So God here tells them, hey, continue on with the sacrifices. And at first glance, it seems harsh, but we realize what God is doing here. He's getting them refocused. And so it says in verse 16. This is still part of the story, but it switches directions slightly. And that is because, I'm sorry, I forgot to put this up there for those of you that are note takers. Resume the offerings. Get back to serving. Get back to serving. The second thing is, there's a rebuke here. Then Moses made careful inquiry about the goat of the sin offering. Careful inquiry. I like this about Moses. He didn't just go attack. He went and made this careful inquiry. Starts asking questions. So Moses made careful inquiry about the goat of the sin offering. And there it was, burned up. And he was angry with Eleazar and Ithamar, the sons of Aaron who were left. And he said, why have you not eaten the sin offering in a holy place, since it is most holy? And God has given it to you to bear the guilt of the congregation, to make atonement for them before the Lord. So Moses addresses Eleazar and Ithamar. Why is the goat still there? Why is the animal still there? Why haven't you done what you were supposed to do? And he says in verse 18, see, its blood was not brought inside the holy place. Indeed, you should have eaten it in a holy place as I commanded. So Moses is concerned. These are his family members. And he says, what are you guys doing? You just saw Eleazar and Ithamar. He says, you just saw your brothers die at the hands of God because they were messing around. They were not fulfilling their duties correctly. And now what are you doing? You're messing around and not fulfilling your duty. Why would you do this? I want you to keep in mind that Moses is talking to Eleazar and Ithamar. Why is that important? Because of who answers in verse 19. And Aaron said to Moses, look, this day they have offered their sin offering and their burnt offering before the Lord. And such things have befallen me. If I had eaten the sin offering today, would it have been accepted in the sight of the Lord? So when Moses heard that, he was content. Now, let me tell you this very plainly. Verse 19, for the life of me, I do not understand what's going on. Some of you, I'm telling you this is why. Some of you are going to end up being Bible teachers at some point. You're thinking, it ain't gonna be me. No way I'm gonna stand up in front of anybody and say anything or teach anything, right? If I were to ask you to come up, some of you would be okay. You'd have a good time up here, but some of you would be deathly afraid. If I asked you to come up here, you would just melt off your seat into the carpet and you would just die because you would be so terrified. But some of you will end up being Bible teachers at some point, whether it's a pastor or women's ministry teacher or maybe reading a Devo or I don't know, whatever. But you're going. And here's just a little lesson that when you don't know, when you do not understand what the passage is saying, like verse 19, it's best just to say, I do not understand what it's saying. Now, I get the basic meaning, and I'll share that with you in just a moment. But let me share something else with you. I listened to two different Bible teachers who are much greater than I am, and I didn't get a clear answer on this. And then I read two commentaries from Bible teachers that are much greater than I am, and I still didn't get a clear picture. So I don't understand the details. I don't understand why Aaron says, hey, listen, what did he say? Look, this day they have offered their sin offering and their burnt offering before the Lord, and such things have befallen me. If I had eaten the sin offering today, I don't really understand exactly what he's getting at, but I do understand the big picture. Moses questions Eleazar and Ithamar. Why would you guys do this? And Aaron says, hey, hold on. Here's the deal. They did this. Verse 19, they have offered their sin offering and their burnt offering before the Lord. And such things have befallen me. Okay? He says they did what they were supposed to do, and look what happened to me. And then here at the end of verse 19, if I had eaten the sin offering today, would it have been accepted in the sight of the Lord? So it seems to me that Aaron is saying, look, my heart wasn't right, man. My heart wasn't right. And if I had went ahead with the offering, would God have accepted it? My heart's not right. My heart's not in it. And because of that, in verse 20, so when Moses heard that, he was content. He said, oh, okay. So there was something there that Moses did not understand initially until Aaron explained that. And then Moses went, oh, I didn't understand, but I understand now. I'm content with that. That's fine. But it reminds us of something. It reminds us that we are to worship in spirit and, does anybody know the other one? Spirit and what? Truth. That our worship needs to be a spiritual act. If I am coming in on a Sunday morning or on a Wednesday night and I'm worshiping fervently so that that hot girl in the back of the room can see me, or maybe it's for the ladies, that I really want that guy. He's so cute. And I just want him to see how much I love the Lord. And so, as he's looking okay, woo, if my worship is not a spiritual act, if it's an act of the flesh, then it's not right. But also in spirit and in truth. I need to be honest when I come. Not putting on a show for God or anybody in the room. I need to be honest. And it seems to me like Aaron is saying, look, my heart's not in it. And if I had done this, man, it would have been done the wrong way, and I didn't want to go there. So what's the lesson? The lesson for you and I is that when I come and I'm worshiping, that I need to just be honest with God. I need to be transparent with him. And that if I don't feel like worshiping, I need to show up anyways and just tell him, God, I don't feel like worshiping. Normally I sing, normally I raise my hands, but I don't feel like it today. My heart is heavy, or I'm struggling with this, or my mind is, over here or over there. And I need to just tell him that and not try to put on a show. Lots of times I live my life according to the phrase, fake it till you make it. But in the area of worship, don't do that. Don't do that. Worship is the one area where we can come and we can be open and honest. Because it's me and it's God. And yeah, we do it corporately like this in a group, but it's me and it's God. I'm not worried about the person next to me or what my sister has to say or what my friend, or whatever. I'm not worried about those things. When it's time to worship, I'm worshiping. It's me and God. And I need to just come honestly and tell God exactly what's on my heart and what's on my mind and not put on a show. For God can see right through it. Maybe the rest of us, maybe you can fool us, but you're not going to fool God. So it's best that we just come honestly. But let's finish with this. Why did Nadab and Abihu die? Why did they lose their lives? They lost their lives because they attempted to come to God on their own terms. And because of that, they lost their lives. There have been people since the beginning of time, and there will always be people who will attempt to come to God on their own terms. Do you remember Cain and Abel? And Cain killed Abel? Because he came to it, he offered a sacrifice in the flesh. He had the wrong attitude. I'm going to come to God on my own terms. And there are people who attempt to come to God on their own terms. But what did God say? What did God say? That we come to God through the sacrifice of the Lamb, through Jesus and Jesus only. All roads lead to heaven, but only one road leads into heaven. Everybody will show up to be judged, but not everybody will be allowed in. It is only through Jesus. That is the only way. And if I attempt to reach God or to reach heaven by any other means, I will lose my life. That's the lesson. Nadab and Abihu attempted to reach God by their own means. And because of that, they lost their life. And what does the Bible say? The Bible says that it is appointed unto man once to die, and then comes the judgment. Just once. There's no reincarnation. The Bible doesn't teach reincarnation. It doesn't say, hey, you'll get a second chance. This is it. And so I have got to be careful. And what I want to do is I want to check myself and say, yeah, I'm in a Christian church, man, in a Christian family, at a Christian school. Maybe I'm homeschooled or whatever, or I belong to youth group, or I was in, junior high, and I'm going to go to vertical, and I'm going to be a Christian. But what you want to do is you want to check your heart and say, listen, is it genuine? Am I coming to God by faith in Jesus, the only way? There is one mediator between God and man, we're told, the man Christ Jesus. That's it. And if I am attempting to get to God by being a super nice person, it doesn't work. That's not what God commanded. Does he want us to be nice? He does. But God didn't say, just be a really nice person and you can get to heaven. He did not say that. Nadab and Abihu, I did not tell you to do that. The lesson is that I need to make sure that I place my faith in Jesus if I want eternity in heaven. That is the only way. Or at least that's what the Bible teaches. There's lots of other religions, lots of other people who say that you can get to heaven this way, that way, any way, just, do this or do that, or just, if you pray, enough times on this beaded necklace, or if you take a trip to Mecca, or if you go to this city, or you go visit the Vatican, or you go do, commit your life to, take a vow of poverty or a vow of silence, or they have all these different ways of doing it. And yet God only ordained one way, and that way is through Jesus. We can't come to God any other way. It's only through Jesus. God is specific. And so if you are here this morning, this afternoon, and you're thinking about your own life and your own faith and your own heart, and there's some question there like, man, have I placed my faith in God really through Jesus? Have I come through Jesus? Or am I just counting on being a really good person? Or, you know what, God, I've suffered through all of those high school messages. I mean, you got to let me in. I've earned my spot. It's not going to work. Sad news. You're suffering through all of these high school messages, and you're still not going to get to heaven. Surrender your life to Jesus. That's the way that God set it up. That's the only way. So if you haven't done that, do that today. And I'll lead you in a real simple prayer to do that. The prayer is not a magical prayer. In fact, the prayer won't mean anything if you don't mean it. But when I pray that prayer, it's just a sample prayer. You pray it from your own heart. You mean it. And the Bible says that if you believe on the Lord Jesus Christ, you will be saved. Not if you believe in being a really nice person, or if you believe in saving the environment, or if you believe in saving really cute puppies, or if you believe in helping your old neighbor next door take out her trash cans every week, or if you believe in washing your parents' car, or mowing the lawn, or picking up after the dog, or sweeping, or doing any of those things that's going to earn you a spot in heaven, you're wrong. It's only through Jesus. Let's pray. Father, thank you so much.